This is Things I Need to Learn in Life I Didn't Learn in School, covering everything we should know as adults that got glossed over in our classrooms. With your host, Wave News anchor, Dawne Gee.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Things I Need to Learn in Life I Didn't Learn in School. This is a lesson that I am trying to learn, so I am sharing it with you. And if it's something that you need, here we go. Deborah Turner is here. She is an issue expert. I have a lot of issues, actually. She is with AARP, and we're talking about aging parents. I'm so afraid that my parents are going to hear this because I'm doing this because of my parents. My sister and I always talk about, oh my goodness, nobody ever talks about the issues that come as your parents age because everything changes, right? They were in charge and they told you what to do. And now you're looking going, Mama, don't do that. Daddy, hold on, let me get that, right? And even my kids say, boy, this is so different, and I'm just so afraid they're going to hear this. What's the first thing you tell people when they get in that position? I guess you call it as caregiver?
Right. Well, an awful lot of people don't consider themselves caregivers. All they're thinking about is, how do I take care of someone who loves me and who I love? And AARP has been so good at helping us think about how we want to live as we age over the 50 plus period, okay? And from your comments about school, I think we've got to go back always to say we did not learn in school what the world was going to be like at that point. They told us we have our families, we're raised with our parents, we move out with our families, and we raise our kids. No one prepared us for doing all of those things at the same time. We're the sandwich generation. We are the people who have to do both. And at the third thing, we're working more often than not. 75% of all people who take care of someone or have responsibilities for someone are working as well, either full or part-time. So they're not just sitting around at home waiting for someone to call on them.
And that's hard because you want to do everything in the world for this person.
Right.
Because you love them. My mother was in the hospital twice this year. My sister and I both work. That's like 14 days, and you're like, oh, can I take away from work for 14 days? Then I ended up breaking my hip. So then my sister ended up having to do it alone. We're both stressed. I don't even know how you handle that. I can't even imagine what an only child would do. Is there a 1, 2, 3? Is there even a way to prepare? Because, you can, this is maybe a morbid thing to say, but you can prepare for death, right? You can plan your funeral. You can do your will. Is there a 1, 2, 3 to say, okay, Mom and Dad are getting older. We should do this, 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 and this.
Absolutely.
Nobody ever said that there was a 1, 2, 3.
No, but that's because AARP now has that information available for us. When I was taking care of my grandmother and mother 20, 30 years ago, raising my children, I didn't have resources. I was caught in the same situation. But AARP.org/caregiving has information about things that we have to deal with every single day. But the biggest thing we try to do is to get people to think early on, before there's a crisis, to talk about preparing to care. And when we're preparing to care, the first thing we've got to talk about is having that conversation with our parents. AARP came up with something called conversation cards. And you can go online and actually print out cards to get to the information that you want to focus the discussion with your parents. Where you tend to sometimes might say one thing and the parent says, I don't want to talk about that.
That's my mother.
Well, it's our parents were not raised thinking that they should share information with their kids. They think they should still be in charge.
Is that even with the will and things like that? And what do you want? And you know, where is it?
No, they don't think that that's something that they need to share. You're the child. You got to be the child. And you're going to be that child as far as they're concerned for a long time. One of the ways we kind of encourage people to deal with their parents is to think of it as what you're doing for you. What questions would you want and answered? And you go to the parent talking about, I'm getting ready to prepare my will, my estate, my care plan. How do you think I should do this? Have the conversation with them that way. And then tell me about how you think about it. You know, so you kind of get them thinking about how to help you while at the same time you're finding out information about what they want. And that's what the care cards do. They give you questions that you can use. Did you ever think about how you wanted to live your life at this point? What did you want to accomplish? Yeah. All of those things feed into how they want to be cared for, how much a part of what they want to be for what you do. And I mentioned prepare to care, and you wanted to know about steps. There are 5 steps in preparing to care. First off is holding the conversation. Then the next thing is building a team. It's something we don't think about. We want to, particularly if we're only children or we're older children, we want to be the ones that, oh, we'll take care of it, we'll deal with it. But you've got to find ways to bring in other people. You bring in your sister, you bring in someone from the faith community, if that's your part. You bring in someone who could just be a neighbor that then has a clear function of what they can do. And they don't all have to live in your area, because one of the things we've got now is email and text and video chats, and so you can share information. Then the third thing is, after you've built that team, make sure that you go through and create a plan. What services does your parent need? Where are those going to come from? And who's going to be responsible for calling on the team? I found it works so much better if people have a role and know what they can do to help. The fourth thing is then find that support. We know in our communities things are changing all the time, but there are nonprofit groups that are out there. There are government groups who are still trying to help us do some things. There are resources, again, on AARP.org, caregiving, that can tell you by state what's available in that particular state. So in Kentucky, you can pull up Kentucky. And the final thing, the fifth thing, is to take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, there's not going to be anyone around to take care of the way you would like your particular family to be taken care of.
I call that, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And one of the things we see all the time is people saying, well, I can do this. I'll push it off and I won't have to, I don't have to share with anybody. It's my job. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to do it. And before long, we find they're in the hospital themselves, and then the guilt comes. Well, I wasn't able to do whatever, So think about that. There are so many ways to support yourself now. You know, again, we go back, we had COVID, and during that time period, we learned how to communicate without actually being in person. So if your thing is, for example, physical fitness, there are ways to get on YouTube. There are ways through, you can go again to AARP.org caregiving and find ways to support yourself.
Well, I remember I got the big, huge pleasure of coming to an AARP banquet for caregivers where they were applauded. And I heard the stories, and it was just the biggest thing because most people don't applaud the caregivers, you know.
But they should.
And it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. It is very hard.
Doesn't mean you don't want to do it, but
No,
it's hard.
It's very hard, and it's one of those things that even after you have finished the role, you know, when your family no longer needs your care, that becomes just as hard in terms of dealing with the responsibility you had. One would think it goes, oh, well, this is easy. I don't have to do anything now. But that was a part of your life, dealing with that family in those ways. So we find people are very uncomfortable with, what do I do now?
Wow.
Now.
Well, I don't even know if this is a legitimate question or a right question, but is there a biggest mistake that people make?
I wouldn't say it's the biggest mistake. The some of
See,
the
I didn't know how
mistakes-
to word that. I don't want to
Yeah.
say mistake.
It's not a mistake. It's we want to do so much ourselves, and to be comfortable in reaching out to other people. AARP has figured out that it's important to have a network of people supporting you. So there is an online community that you can go to. You can either do it by computer. There's a Facebook group where people, the entry is controlled so that people are not on to scam you. It's people to share information. So there's going to be someone who's had a similar situation. Every caregiver experience is slightly different because we're dealing with different diseases. But AARP has tried to figure out what are the number one diseases that you might have, and say there's Parkinson's. You know, there's actually a bulletin on the AARP.org that says, I'm caring for someone with Parkinson's. This is what I need to know. I'm caring for someone with diabetes. This is what you need to know. You can go down the list of normal things that you hear about and find ways to help, you know, online.
Does money ever become an issue?
Money is always an issue because the numbers of people who take money out of their own pocket, sacrifice their futures to take care of their loved ones is extreme. What we found in 21, there was a study done by AARP, and about 78% of the people who were surveyed, of the population at that point, who said they were caregivers, or at least didn't call themselves that, but said they had someone they were taking care of as an older adult. They were spending 25% of their income taking care of a person.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And you know, on an average, if that average is 25%, there are people doing a lot more. And that jeopardizes potentially their own future and their own retirement. And how do they plan?
If there were something that you would want to share with a caregiver, what would that be? Anything, just like, man, I wish they knew this.
I wish they knew that there is information out there and that there are people on a real helpline for caregiving that you can actually call. and who will answer questions then based on what you've asked. Try to give you resources to try to keep people from thinking they're so overwhelmed. I mean, there's almost so much information.
And you can get overwhelmed, been there,
Very
done
quickly,
that.
yes.
Do they get that on the website of AARP?
AARP.org, and there are free publications that are produced that provide the call
You
information.
can raise those up if you want to.
This one is the Prepare to Care Guide that I mentioned that gives you the 5 steps.
Can you just leave that on the desk when you leave?
Absolutely, I will. And because AARP has realized in going through the caregiving process, with staff and volunteers, and I'm a volunteer. Granted, I've been doing it for 17 years, but I'm a volunteer, okay? One of the other things that comes up, finances, is what you're asking. There is a financial workbook for caregivers that are available. These are all free. This is all, you can call the number and ask for a copy to be sent to you or two, so the person you're caring for gets a copy, you get one. It walks you through the powers of attorney that you might need, the living wills, the estate planning. How do you talk about budgeting? What are the expenses that are likely going to come up? All of those things are here, and then reminds you again what the resources are. There are phone numbers and websites so that you can get to people who can, if they can't give you somebody right now, at least they can answer a question.
Is there anything, is there anything at all, Deborah, that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure that you share as we talk about caring for someone aging in your life that you love?
One of the big things we try to encourage people to do is to have those conversations preparing to care before the person can no longer contribute that information.
That's big.
It is really big, because I know I had to deal with a mother who had early onset Alzheimer's. And when you get to 58 and you no longer know for sure where you are, realizing that you're probably going to live for another 30 years, I had to plan for that without this information. AARP has information available to talk about Alzheimer's, how do you have the conversations, preparing to care early. It's one of the reasons we address people who are 50 plus. They aren't retiring, they're still working, they're probably still having kids in college, something else is still going on with them. So that, but having that conversation while people are still able to contribute.
This is my last question for you, and I just thought of it, and you said it while you were talking. You said even if you don't call yourself a caregiver, how come people don't like to call themselves caregivers?
I think in big part because they think it is something they're supposed to do. It's family. I'm taking care of family. But we see caregivers at this point, and we're talking about unpaid caregivers. These are not the people from the senior care and different ones who may be paid to come in. We're talking about this unpaid resource that this country depends on to make aging easier.
As it should be.
Right, right. But so they don't want to call themselves caregiver. And that's when we provide training on the Prepare to Care program.
I'm going to call them love givers.
There you go, because that's what they're doing.
I'm going to call them love givers.
But there's no insult related to being a caregiver.
But I think people take it as that. I think it sounds too clinical, maybe. Okay, before you go,
yes.
Any website number, anything like that you want to give just to make sure that the audience gets what they need? And I want to say it's so funny. I am a member of AARP, and I remember getting a card, and it said, you know, time to join AARP. And I was like, you must be out your mind. AARP. And I called my sister, and I was like, they sent me an AARP card. She went, yeah, I'm a member. And I went, what is going on? I joined, and they sent me an AARP backpack. And now I get discounts when I go to hotels and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'm a member of AARP. But where can we get any emails or whatever we need to have from you?
AARP.org/caregiving. That website will take you to all the information that I've mentioned today, plus so much more. And if you're not comfortable in just going on the website, you can call. There's an 800 number to call, and it's an 877, okay? 1-877-333-5885.
Can you give it one more time?
Yes, ma'am. 1-877-333-5885. All of the publications I've mentioned, plus even more, you can get them to send them to you.
For free.
For free. And if you have questions, there are people like me who will, you can put your question in, and we will answer those questions based on either our experience or what the documents say.
Deborah, you are an issues expert, girl. You are an issues expert. We appreciate it from AARP. I mean, this is real.
That's right.
This is real, and I'm going to call my sister as soon as we are done here, because I mean, this is real.
Absolutely.
And we thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate your giving us this opportunity to get more information out to people. And when you say issue expert, not only do we talk about caregiving, we talk about fraud.
Oh, they do. We'll come back. That's another day, Deborah.
We've got all kinds of things.
Another day. Things I need to learn about. We're going to learn about fraud, so everybody hang on. Because she's an issues expert.
Right.
I do hope that you learned a little bit if you have someone you love that is aging and you're going to be responsible for that care.
Right.
Things I need to learn in life I didn't learn in school. I learned a lot. I hope you did, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you come back again. Deborah Turner, issues expert, AARP. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you all for joining us.